Welcome to all of you. So glad to have you here. I'm really excited that Lorraine Aguilar is back. She's a two-time SB Agile facilitator, speaker extraordinaire. We're really happy to learn from her again, this time about the art of appreciation. She's an expert in the area of nonviolent communication and collaborative communications, compassionate communications. I met Lorraine via another coach, Amanda Erlings, who's involved in the NVC community. So I think we met maybe sometime a year or two ago, and just been so happy to meet Lorraine. She's come to some other Southern California Agile open space events. There's one coming up in September. It's called Agile Open SoCal. So she was at that event in the past, offering her NVC inspired workshops. And just Lorraine is an international speaker. She travels all around the world, China and other places, helping companies improve their communications. And we're just really fortunate that she's come back to teach us today. And so, without further ado, here's Lorraine.
Thanks, Heidi. Turn this off. Thanks for the warm introduction, and thanks for having me. I love that I'm seeing a number of familiar faces as well as some new ones. And I love this environment that Appfolio has created for us to be learning. Please be prepared. We are going to be engaged in a lot of activities tonight, and you will probably be moving your seats during some times. And yes, I will unleash the ukulele at some point soon. So this is a good time to eat your pizza. So I'm not sure what to say to kick this off, except that this is my favorite topic. And it's different from what we talked about last year. I feel that we're actually going to go even deeper or create an environment for you to dig deep if you choose to. But whatever is your comfort level, I invite you to kind of settle in and enjoy the experience that I've done my best to create for you tonight. So, as I mentioned, appreciation is my favorite topic. We all like to be appreciated. Who doesn't? And one little factual or one little tidbit of research is the U.S. Department of Labor years ago did a study that almost half of people who voluntarily left their jobs, they quit because they didn't feel appreciated. And I'm guessing that's probably not a surprise to you. I mean, how many of you, you don't have to say right now, you don't have to admit or confess anything, but you can think to yourself, how many of you actually feel that you could be more appreciated in your work, that your contributions could be better seen, better recognized, better valued? It's a real challenge. I mean, those of us who manage, who lead others, it's very difficult to see how everyone is performing. And sometimes the more visible people get a lot more attention, more recognition. And especially in the IT field, when you're doing your job well, many of you will go unnoticed. You only get noticed when things fall apart, right? So appreciation is huge. I mean, from childhood through the end of our lives, it's a theme that drives us and connects us as human beings. And how's the volume, by the way? I'm speaking at a comfortable. Okay, no one's struggling to. Okay, great. So one of the things that I like to do is tap into your own experience. So I'm hoping that you'll be sharing some of your own experiences around appreciation. And before the end of the night, I'm going to share with you one of those famous 3-step formulas on how to express effective appreciation to get the most punch out of it. Appreciation that can really make a difference. And when I say make a difference, the big distinction here is how do we express appreciation in a way that actually empowers people, that actually taps into what's meaningful for them so that they can do their best work, versus expressing appreciation that creates a culture of approval seeking, right, and one-upmanship. It can be very subtle, and yet it's really easy to go one way versus the other. So we're going to be exploring that distinction today. I'd like to introduce my friend, the ukulele. So many of you guys know I'm a musician, and this is the most portable of my toys. I like to use this for breakouts, so I'm just going to give you the way this works. You'll be doing some group exercise. When you hear the ukulele, that means it's time to start wrapping up your discussion. And I don't decide in advance what I'm going to play, but if you can sense that it's coming to an end, that's when I'd like us all to kind of come back to the room. So when you hear it, that's what you know. Okay, so prop number 2, my dollar store hacky sacks. So, welcome. Can we have everyone in a circle so you're not hiding? Yeah, you can make a little room for them. So, as a matter of fact, this is probably a good time to be adjusting your chairs because we're going to break into small groups. So, could we, let's see, count groups of, how many are we? I'm guessing less than 20. Why don't we do groups of 4? So, this group of 4, Carl? Okay, so from Phil on. Okay, and then this group of 4, Jared. All right, so, and then we've got this group of from George to Holly.
Oh,
Woo! Okay, and then we've got this group of 4.
your math skills are phenomenal.
Thank you. It's that it's the residual of my long lost engineering career. Okay, there you go. Okay, so what are we going to do with the hacky sacks? I'll use this group to demonstrate. So, oh yeah, I noticed you guys are meeting each other. Is this part of the Agile meetup culture? Would you like to introduce each other? Does that help?
Sure.
Is that something that before we get too deep into content, and before you get too comfortable, can we just, Ellie, do you mind kicking it off?
Sure. Hi, I'm Ellie. I'm new to AppFolio and pretty new to SB Agile. It's coming about 6 months. And I think they're my people. I think you're my people.
Hi, I'm Robert. I've been coming for a number of months, ever since I was introduced to it. And I'm looking for work. And I've been looking in the product management space for a long time, but now I've moved into pre-sales engineering, sales development.
Hi, I'm Rahul. I'm new to AppFolio. I've been with SB Agile for quite some time.
Hi, I'm Antonio. Pretty new to Agile. This is my second one, and I'm a co-founder of a startup, brand new, called the Rogi.
Rogi.
I'm Diane, and I work at Citrix right down the road, and I've been coming to SB Agile, and I love it, and I'm glad that you're back. Thank you.
That's right, we were at Citrix last year.
I'm Kate. I've been to one other SB Agile meeting, and I enjoyed it immensely, so I'm very happy to be back.
My name's Paula, and Danielle told me about this. We met at a startup weekend a few weeks ago, and first time.
I'm Danielle, and I'm product director for an education company, and I've been coming here on and off for like 6 months when I'm in town.
My name is Mai. I recently moved over to Citrix and been going to Agile meetups for a long time up in the Bay Area and for a couple of years here.
I'm George. I'm a tech guy / counselor, and I like very much the sense of community that SB Agile has created.
I'm Lincoln, and fairly new to SB Agile, but glad to be here.
I'm Paul. I'm a coach here at AppFolio, and approximately 2 years ago, Heidi and I went for a walk, and we said we should start this thing called SB Agile. But I've not been here for the last 8 or 9 months because I've been busy, and I'm very, very happy to be back.
My name's Holly May, and I just moved here from Berlin, but I'm from here originally. And I was working as an in-house employee and team coach for 3 years there. I don't know what I'm doing next. I'll probably move to LA. In the meantime, I'm here.
My name's Martha, and I've been to one other SB Agile meeting, and I liked it also tremendously. And this one looked like an interesting topic, so I'm here again. And I work at Citrix, and I met Mai today at lunch.
My name is Jerry. We're same shirt as her, so we from portfolio. And yeah, I'm on and off as a host with SB Agile as a hosting company. So I come, learn, and to support.
My name is Melch. I'm a software developer at Procore. I gave an interview today, so I'll report out. Let's see. Yeah, I love this group and learning and exploring new things. Thanks for starting it.
I'm Craig. I work at Wyatt Technology just up the street on Hollister, and love coming to the SB Agile meetings just to learn everything I can about it.
I'm Carl. I work also down the road over there at Autovitals. I'm a department head, and I've been coming like for almost a year, but on and off.
I'm Julie. I work here at Folio, actually in San Diego, so I'm here temporarily. I'm a product.
I'm Heidi Hopan. I work here at Folio as an Agile coach, and I'm happy to be part of this.
I'm Phil Conrad. I teach at UC Santa Barbara, and I worked briefly right over there for about 10 weeks here at Appfolio, and met these wonderful people. Heidi suggested I come to Open Agile SoCal, where I met this wonderful lady, and I'm so happy she's back.
Great to, I'm so excited that you're here for this. And I have to say, I speak to such diverse communities, and I was just sharing with Paul before our gathering tonight, how Agile folk really stand out for me. With this community, not only here in Santa Barbara, but in other Agile folk that I've met, the one thing that you have that really distinguishes you in relative to other groups that I work with is your initiative and hunger for constant learning and development. And I love what Paul said in reply to that. It's like, well, those are our principles by which we operate. So I love that you're living it. There's a huge difference between people who are here because they really want to learn and are constantly growing and developing versus they're here because they were told to be here by their manager. So you guys make my job so much fun. So, all right. So I'd like to anchor what we're going to learn in the reality of our own experiences. So I'm guessing we've all lived enough life to have experienced appreciation gone wrong. And so that's what the hacky sacks are for. You'll have your small circles, and the way it works is whoever has the sack will be the speaker. And, and you just think of one example, share one example in your own life of ineffective appreciation. So I'll kick it off. You guys want to stand with me, and we'll demonstrate it for the rest of the group? Okay, try not to step on any pizza. All right, so let's see. I experienced once a colleague who was given a recognition by being called up on a stage in front of a whole bunch of people, shaking the vice president of the utilities' hands, given an award, and given the microphone. And he felt like dying because he is shy, does not like attention, does not like public speaking, and that is not the way he enjoys being recognized. He would have rather died than receive appreciation that way. So, who has an example?
I was on a project that was that I didn't choose to be on. I was happy to be on it, but I didn't choose. So, and work was very kind, and during one of company lunches, brought us up in front of everybody and gave us backpacks and thanked us for being on the project. But it felt a little weird because my coworkers had worked just as hard on the things that they were assigned to and didn't get backpacks.
Awkward. Yeah. Okay. So you guys get an idea how this goes. So you can please continue and go ahead and continue in your groups. Did I steal someone's hacky sack? Oh, okay, great. And go ahead and share your examples with your group until you hear the ukulele. You can whistle with me. So. Yeah, so it's kind of fun to It looks like you had no trouble finding examples. You can go ahead and hold on to the hacky sacks for now. We might use them a little bit. Okay. So, no worries, you can adjust however you like. So, as you can see from your own experience, it's really easy to miss the intent of appreciation. It's really easy for good intentions, for really good intentions, to miss the mark and sometimes have even harmful effects. As I mentioned earlier, one of the distinctions that I'd like us to appreciate when we look at how appreciation works and doesn't work is appreciation that empowers people versus appreciation that disempowers. In particularly, appreciation that's based on my opinion of you, on my judgment of you, right? On what I think of you, right? Who has the power if your worth is based on my opinion of you? Who has the power? Me. That's not very empowering for you, is it? That's how we create cultures of, well, there's some less than attractive terms for that, of one-upmanship, of approval seeking. It actually discourages teamwork because we're trying to push each other out of the way to get in the spotlight. Versus appreciation that's very specific. How did you make a difference that was meaningful to me, that was meaningful to the company, to the team? Specifically, what did you do? And how did it make a benefit? So who has the power now? Right. Yeah, you can see how powerful you are in making a difference. And I'm just holding up the mirror, right? Or I'm expressing gratitude because you made a difference for me. Yeah. So it sounds so simple. This guy is where I got a lot of my inspiration around this topic. His name is Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. He passed away early last year. And he created a communications framework called nonviolent communication. Almost everything that I do is rooted in the principles and the practices of nonviolent communication. It's a very elegant system of understanding how people connect and disconnect in the ways that we listen to each other, in the ways that we speak to each other, even in the ways that we think. For me, it's very much a mindfulness practice. And so I'll be sharing with you a lot of the principles that are derived from this in what we'll be talking about. It's based on empathy. And as you can see, that's a very important part of appreciation. It's appreciating what it's like from the other person's shoes. Really, that's the core of empathy. It's not about my experience again. It's about how is it like for you? And what I love about nonviolent communication is even though it was invented or developed here in the US, it's actually bigger outside the US. I spend 1 to 2 months a year outside of the US doing leadership workshops based on nonviolent communication. Everything from senior managers in Nissan, in Guangzhou, to, oh my gosh, to people who are family practice counselors in Beijing, and to groups of mediators and trainers in Korea. It's interesting how this model cuts through any sort of community where people are important. And that's, I think, why the Agile community has seemed to respond really well to this work, is because as I'm getting to know and love you all so much, that your philosophy is about interdependence, about learning, falling, learning, right? And it's so important to have the communication skills that complement those ways of working together so interdependently. So there are many principles to NVC, but these are a couple of my favorite as it pertains to appreciation, and I just love animal pics, don't you? Is that deep inside each of us, we do have an inherent desire to contribute to each other's well-being. I mean, how many of you are parents here? Any parents? Okay. I'm guessing you've probably seen this with your child. You know, if a child sees another child that's sad, right? Is that child gonna go hit the child, right? No, chances are that child will want to come and comfort. You know, if there's a baby in the room, a little one, and they hear another baby crying, you know their antennas go up, right? And they're concerned. And no one had to teach that child to care. They're not doing it because it's right or wrong or because their parents told them so. It's something that we all have deep inside of us. And so how is it that when we create this thing called a workplace, it can be so easily lost, right? When we have things like urgency, scarcity, competition, trust or lack thereof, transparency or lack thereof, how easily this innate human quality can be lost. So how do we get it back? How do we step back into that? Even when there's a storm, to still stay anchored in that place. It's again back to the practice of empathy, back to that practice of mindfulness and compassion in our everyday speech and thought. So let's practice it. Just as all of you have had experiences of appreciation that hasn't worked, I'd like to believe that you all have had experiences of appreciation that really did make a difference for you, that may have changed the way you might even see yourself. It might have maybe influenced a decision you made about your life, or maybe gave you an inspiration on how you want to live or express appreciation yourself. So think of a time in your life when you received a recognition, an appreciation. It could be spoken or unspoken. It could be something from work, from your professional experience, from your education. It could be something from your family or a friend. The main thing is that it's something that was meaningful for you. And pick an example that you're going to be comfortable sharing in your small group. So make sure it's something you're okay. And then we're going to play a card game. Some people call this empathy poker, but each group is going to get a deck of cards to play with. Oh, you remember that? That was the blame game. Those were little different cards. Those are naughty cards. These are sweet cards. One of the elements of nonviolent communication of NVC is this idea that all human beings share these common needs or values, is another way of looking at them. Things like appreciation, respect, trust. The list can go on, but these are the qualities that bind us as human beings, no matter how old or how young we are. If I'm in a village in Africa or in an office in Appfolio, we can all connect over these shared human needs. And so these cards have a partial list of needs. The black ones are a set that I developed of things that show up in the workplace a lot, things like accountability, empowerment, care, teamwork. So each group, and then the red cards are general NVC, so you get different groups will get different cards. So each group, again, you'll be with the same group as before, will get your deck of cards, and you get to smear them all over the floor so that you can see, and then pick 1, 2, or 3 cards that represent a need that was met for you when you received this appreciation. So a need that was met for you. It could have been maybe validation, it could be, I don't know, recognition, it could be growth. I mean, and if it's not in the cards here, you can pick a word yourself that reflects your experience. So let's see, we have groups of 4 and 5, right? I'll tell you what, let's do groups of 4 and maybe, the math isn't going to work. Stick with your original, stick with your original groups. Go ahead and have your circles, and I'll pass a deck to each. Okay, I enjoyed eavesdropping. Those are some really sweet examples I heard. So I'm curious, did anyone either share themselves or hear from one of your colleagues an example that was so inspiring that it actually changed their life or changed your life to some degree? Any life-changing examples that you've heard in your groups? 1, 2, 3? Would any, maybe 1 or 2 of you be willing to volunteer and share your appreciation and how it made a difference?
Sure. I got, while I was an undergrad, I got some feedback on a very important class from a very important professor on this gigantic research project. And on the final draft that I submitted, he wrote, "You're a professional, you should consider graduate school." And that was the first time I'd ever considered it, and I later went on to grad school, largely because of that one comment.
Wow. You planted a seed that grew. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else would like to share one? Let's hear one more, at least one more.
No, mine was his.
Oh, that was his. Okay, you guys are all in the same group. That's why you're all pointing.
Yeah.
I love it. Anyone else have one? It doesn't have to be life-changing, but maybe particularly inspiring that you would like to share? Or...
I like Craig's too.
Okay. I think we all did. We all did. How about one more?
I like Ellie's. I don't know if she wants to share it.
Would you be willing, Ellie, to share your example?
Sure. At my last company, I had a great boss. And then his boss was the VP of a very large division in this big Fortune 300 company. And I wasn't even sure he knew me very much. But he had an office with a door, and we didn't interact much. I didn't want to bother him. But one night I had to go back into the office to grab my laptop, and my son was with me. And so we had to go into the big corporate headquarters. This is downtown, another city. And we go there, and it's about 6:30, 7 o'clock. And I'm talking to my son. He's big, he's awkward. And I say, that's where I sit, and oh, that's where, and I don't think there's anybody in the office. And my boss's boss jumps out of his office and says, "Who's here?" And I said, hi, this is my son, I'm just showing around. And he looked at my son and said, "Your mom's awesome. She is so great." And he said some really nice things. And it reminded me of like what I need to do for other people.
Right on. Thank you. And what was meaningful about that to you? Do you remember what cards you?
It was the fact that he validated to my child that the work I did was valuable, significant, and that I'm good at what I do.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah.
It's got to feel good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love hearing people's examples. And I really want you all to savor the contrast between appreciation gone wrong and appreciation that hits the mark. When appreciation is done poorly, it can create awkwardness, even resentment, unhealthy competition, approval seeking, etc. It can actually bring a team apart when it's not effective. And yet when it lands well, it can change a life. It can validate in us the things that are most precious to us and most personal to us. I love being at this time in the Earth's history because unlike my dear father, rest in peace, where a man supported his family and he had a job to do that. And that was pretty much the meaning of the job. It was a way to support the family. That's not true anymore. We all, of course, support ourselves and our loved ones, but meaning is really important in the work that we do. And I like to believe that the world has shifted in a way that it's not enough just to show up and collect a paycheck anymore. It is part of our human nature to want meaning, and I love that essential part of being human is showing up more and more in our workplace. And appreciation is key to that. It honors, it sees, it recognizes who we are and the contributions that we make for so much of our life that is spent at work. So I promised you a nifty three-step formula. So here we go. When in doubt, if you're not sure if you're going to express appreciation effectively, I like to remember these 3 things. Very specifically, what was said or done in as factual terms as possible. It's not enough just to say, hey, I appreciate you how you have my back there, right? Or I'm really grateful for your support. I'd like to see it even more specific for that, right? Hey, I really appreciate how you helped me prepare for that meeting, right? I really appreciate how you spoke up for my team. when people were recognizing our achievements. So specifically, what was said or done in as factual and specific terms as possible? And what difference did it make? How did it impact you? How did it impact the company or the team? How did it make a difference? And remember the cards that you used? In as much as you can communicate in those terms, that helps drive the appreciation home in ways that they can connect. Again, these cards, speaking in terms of meaning, to be seen, to be heard, trust, support, consideration, all of these universal values, when we speak more and more in these terms, it actually weaves a fabric that connects us. Because again, these are the things that we all as human beings appreciate and share. So if you could speak about the impact, and particularly if you can mention the needs that were met, as you did in this exercise, that can also drive it home even deeper. And then, how many of you love to talk about feelings at work? Yay! Raise your hands. Okay. Yay! All right. It's a fun subject. I think I might do a future workshop on that topic alone. Feelings at work. Who's ever cried at work? I have. Did I enjoy it? No. And yet, feelings and emotions are so important. And so there are professional ways to express feelings that are still genuine, that are still sincere, that don't have to make someone feel awkward necessarily. And so in as much as it is, as you can express your feelings in a way that's appropriate for your workplace. So you might not want to give someone a big fat wet kiss, right? But you can say how delighted you are, or how grateful you are, or how moved, or how touched, or inspired. Whatever the true feeling is, that actually also helps drive it. Because it's nice to know that we made a difference. It's also nice to know that we helped someone feel good. As much as emotions are something that are often, that we cover up in our professional vocabulary, they're very much alive. And so if we can name it, especially in a positive context, it also adds to the power of the appreciation. Okay, so you ready to try out the formula? Okay, more practice. Yeah, Jay.
I'm going to touch a little bit of different kind of appreciation, like a one-to-one appreciation, public appreciation, peer appreciation, or the manager, the cross level.
Yeah, oh, I love that.
I feel each of those can be different.
I agree. Were you guys able to hear what Jerry's comment was? That there are many different contexts for appreciation, whether it's peer-to-peer, whether it's formal or informal, whether it's your boss's boss, right, talking to an employee, or whether you want to appreciate someone up the chain. Honestly, I didn't really build that in, but I think that's an important... Is there a specific question that you have, or something you would like to?
Generally, in my experience, I can be really free on one-on-one appreciation, right? Because it's my feeling to you.
Yes.
Public appreciation, I'm a little bit reserved because you nearly forgot somebody, maybe viewed as a punishment.
Say that again, that last part. Maybe.
So if I forgot something, omit.
Yes.
Or I don't see the whole story.
Right.
I need a public appreciation that could be viewed as a punishment.
Yeah, it's a little dangerous.
Yeah. So I feel that. Another thing is that if I appreciate my peer, very.
Yes.
I appreciate my boss is very awkward.
I agree. So I'll take a few minutes to speak to that actually, because a lot of nonviolent communication, a lot of NVC, has to do with power and power differences, which is why it's so useful in the workplace. Of course, as we practice effective communications, that increases our personal power, right? The power of our ability to connect with what we say and how we listen. But there's another type of power too, which is positional power, right? If I'm your boss or your boss's boss, and the phone's ringing, I'm probably more likely to pick up if it's 6:30 or 7 p.m. than if it's the intern, right? I hate to say that, but that's often the case, is that we tend to give more attention or be more careful when we go up the power chain, and we tend to get more relaxed and ourselves when we go more peer-to-peer, or is someone that we might even have power over, positional power over. So the other thing too that people share with me when they talk about appreciation in the workplace is that not only is it a little dangerous, I like the example you gave, Jerry. What if I express publicly appreciation and now I missed someone? Because right, managers don't have eyes around my head. I might miss something. So if I express appreciation formally, I might set myself up for creating a resentment or someone feeling left out, etc. So it can be dangerous if I'm not very thorough. And then similarly, something that people have shared with me is that it can be very vulnerable to express appreciation, right? In different ways. For example, if I express appreciation up the ladder, right, is that person going to see my appreciation as genuine? Or are they going to see me as brown-nosing, right? Or as trying to gain favor? Is there an agenda or is there a motive? That could be true of any appreciation in particular. Peer-to-peer, I agree, is often the safest because that's when our guard is down, right? There's no power differences between us, so we have nothing to gain or lose. But when there's something to gain or something to lose, it can be delicate. And for that reason, I really suggest that you put some thought into how you appreciate. Because if you can anchor into facts, and if you can connect it with something that did make a difference, right? Feelings even more bonus, but especially these two, then that reduces the risk of it being interpreted as your personal agenda, right? Or interpreted as you trying to gain favor. The more we anchor it in actual factual differences, factual impact, the safer our appreciation becomes. So I don't know if that was sufficiently addressed your concern.
It's difficult.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you brought that up. I think I'm going to include that in the next version of this. Right on, Jay. Okay, so we get to practice this. I'd like to do this as a writing exercise, but I realize that may not be that environment. Who needs a pen?
We have pens.
Do we have pens?
Yeah, we
Okay.
have pens and there's always hats of different.
So as they're doing this, I'm going to invite you to take a moment of reflection, actually. I'm going to raise the bar for you all here.
Your hands up.
Remember how I mentioned a moment ago that appreciation can actually feel kind of vulnerable? Right? So I'm going to challenge you. Think of an example that might actually feel a little vulnerable or a little awkward for you to express appreciation. Maybe it is to your boss's boss. Maybe it is to someone that you might not like, but actually you do appreciate something that they did. Right? Maybe for whatever reason, if you could raise the bar and think of an example that might actually take a little courage on your part or a little humility to express appreciation. Go ahead and write it down. And you'll have a chance to pick just a partner that you're sitting next to and practice expressing that appreciation to your partner as if they were that person. So I don't want you telling the stories like, oh, this is about my boss and this is what I would say to him. No, just that person's your boss. Hey, Jerry. Hey, I really appreciate when you, boom. So you actually, this is not a role play, this is kind of like a real play. I want you to express it as if it was a real deal, and that person was that. And so I'm going to back it up so you can see the three elements a little more easy. So go ahead and take a moment and write down what that appreciation would be. And when you and the person you're sitting next to are ready, you can practice it with them. Welcome back. Okay, let's debrief this. So we went from a 3-step model to taking it home, applying it to an actual example in your life. And I'm guessing that for many of you, maybe even most of you, that this might not be the way you normally express appreciation. So I'm curious how it was for you. How did it feel? Did anyone feel like this was kind of a stretch for them? Yeah, how was it like?
So yes and no. When we first saw this, I thought, oh, this is going to be a slam dunk. I don't want to, I want to express appreciation indirectly to a person who's in this circle that taught me this formula. I use this formula all the time now, and I teach it to my students, and it makes just happy, happy feelings. And I thought, well, this is going to be easy. And then you said, I want you to take it up. I want you to do a hard one. And I took on one that was really hard. And it wasn't that I had any trouble with the formula. I was able to say, this is the action that you took. This is the need it meant for me. And I want to express my appreciation for that. And then as I was actually saying it out loud, I realized, oh my goodness, this person is very likely to hear this as a backhanded slam. Because I am thanking them for something. Well, why wouldn't I do such a thing? You didn't trust that I was going to do that? That's just like a minimum expectation of my job. And why are you thanking me for it? You must have thought that I wasn't going to follow through. Because you're absolutely right. I didn't think you were going to follow through. And oh boy. Yeah, I got to really think about this. I really want to repair the relationship with this person, but it's harder than that.
Yeah, I love the example, and I think it kind of connects to Jerry's concern to a little bit, that you can express appreciation, but how do you do it that you're not stepping on a landmine, right? And that you're being seen as genuine and not, that it's not taken the wrong way. So, did you want to share with the group how you got around that?
Still working on it. Lorraine offered the suggestion that I see if I can work into my presentation to this person. I want to acknowledge that you might see this as just doing your job. And one of the ways that I thought about it is that in the best of all possible worlds, everyone in my department would do this thing. This thing was participating in hiring of our new teaching faculty. And in fact, not everybody in the department did. And that's okay, because we're really stretched thin. But this faculty member is one of the ones who did bother to show up. And so I can maybe use that. I can say, look, I know you may feel you're just doing your job, but I noticed not everybody was here. And I just really appreciate that you were one of the told it was. And that shows me how much you value our teaching mission.
I love it.
And maybe that's a way I could say something that would be seen as positive rather than.
Yeah, let's crowdsource this. How would that sound to you guys? Yeah.
I'd say, you probably think this is just doing your job, but competency in doing your job is vital to the success of what we're doing. And so I want to just really appreciate that component. It's rock solid.
Yeah.
And the other place you can go with that is, and I don't know if I heard this in what you were saying, anchoring what was the need in you that was met when this person did that.
Yeah.
Like, what was that?
I would try to. Yeah, that's a
Surprise.
You didn't have a need for surprise.
I guess I don't know if I feel comfortable sharing this with that person, but just between you and me and all of us, it was a trust building thing. I have some lingering lack of trust in my relationship with this person, and seeing this person show up and do this thing consistently and with sincerity really built some trust.
I love it.
For me.
So if you were totally honest with her, this would be basically acknowledging that she's rebuilding some lost trust? Is that it?
Yes.
Okay.
Although I don't know if we've built enough trust yet for me to say that.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that you say that. There are some professional ways to say, I like that I can depend on you, or in my job it's so important that I can rely, reliability, dependability, stuff like that.
That's a thing I can say.
Yeah.
It's so important to me to know that I can rely on my colleagues to value the teaching mission. And I really appreciate you and all the faculty that showed up.
Awesome.
And I really especially want to appreciate that you showed up and did all these things.
Yeah.
And that way, even if she sees it as just doing her job, I'm acknowledging that that's important to me.
Yes.
And I'm guessing, I mean, the nice thing about us human beings is we're often smarter than we look. You know, like, I'm guessing she might know that there's a trust issue. So even without you having to say anything, she'll probably know exactly what she meant. And hopefully, like, take that as in a positive way.
And I hope that
Yeah.
tone of voice and body language can convey my sincerity.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is important. Paul, I like that you anchored it to the needs. That helps. And also, when you mention the numbers, if you can quantify it. Lincoln and I were talking about, you know, how, you know, sometimes being analytical. I mean, if you could actually, like, state it as analytically as possible. There was, you know, so many people who did this, and you were one of them, right? That's really factual, and that helps people understand that this isn't just Phil's opinion of me. This is actually something that I did that is in very concrete terms. That makes it also very easier for people to hear. So, let's see. I want you to do one more exercise before we go. But I just let's jump to this last one. What gets in the way of you guys expressing appreciation more often? I know it's something that, I mean, we all have good intentions, we all have big hearts, right? And yet, so often we don't express appreciation. Does anyone have any insights on what gets in the way for you?
I know for me, I'm very sensitive to how people react, and then I just think, like, I'll skip it either because they'll give off an awkward vibe about it, or I'll think, like, oh, is that too much? Did I share too much of my squishy insides with you now? And whatever. It just gets weird.
Yeah,
Like,
it can get awkward and weird.
Sometimes I would rather just be like, oh, thanks.
Maybe too intimate, you
Yeah,
think?
too intimate.
Yeah.
Or I fear that it.
Yeah, it can be. It can be. That's why I want to give you the one, keep coming back to the 3-step formula. As much as you can make it in terms of really factual stuff and impact versus opinion and judgment, that takes away a lot of the awkwardness. Because again, it's less about your squishy feelings. And even though it's important, I like expressing feelings, but if you anchor it in the facts, what was said or done, and how did it make a difference, that actually, in a way, gets us off the hook from a lot of the emotional awkwardness. Because people are walking away with, oh, this is what I did, you know, versus this is what Holly thinks of me. Right? That's where it gets dangerous, right? So, anyone else? Any insights about what gets in the way for you?
It forces you to work on yourself. I mean, you need to be very well rooted and with a balanced sense of self-appreciation. Otherwise, if you depend too much on what, like she was saying, you know, what the reaction of it, you cannot control. You can never imagine what's going to happen with the other person because they can project anything that is going on with them onto you, and you have no control over that. So it takes courage, in that sense, to face the unknown of telling somebody how you really feel.
I love that. Yeah, being really centered and anchored, because you can't control how they receive it. I mean, how many of you have ever experienced an appreciation in your life where you probably didn't receive it as gracefully as you probably would have liked, but then it sank in later, and it's like, oh, that was nice. Did that ever happen to you? It's like, oh, if I could do it again, I would have been just as graceful with George as he was with me. But instead, I just, often, people don't know how to receive appreciation. It can be awkward, and yet it can be life-changing. So even, I'd like to encourage all of you, even if it might be a stretch for you to express appreciation in this way, or to express it more often. And even if the other person might even seem a little awkward, you know, try to remember times in your own life where it might have seemed awkward for you, but then when you went to bed that night or when it settled in, it's like, oh yeah, that was significant. Or maybe I will go to grad school. Or, you know, maybe I am beautiful. Whatever it is, right? So I like your comment, George, because it segues into our next and final topic, because really to be anchored in genuine appreciation, it really invites us to be anchored in ourselves, to be self-connected. And, you know, they say you have to fill your own well before you fill other people's well, especially those of us in service industries, right? A lot of us come from cultures, work cultures, family cultures, ethnic cultures, culture after culture about putting other people first, putting other people first, right? So I think it's important if we're going to be effective appreciators that we also learn to appreciate ourselves. And so this is the last, and I would say the highest bar that I'd like to set for all of you. And so, and we have just a few minutes to do it. So I'm going to ask you to dig deep and think about, is there something that you are longing to be seen for? Is there a particular situation or a relationship in your life where you feel that you're contributing a lot and that maybe it's not being as recognized as you would like it to be, or acknowledged as much as you would like it to be? What would that appreciation be that you would just love to hear? The one that may never come, but that you wish it would. And then you still have the cards. If there's time, what need would that meet for you? Well, actually, you know what? Keep the cards. We'll just do the second one. What difference would you want to be seen for? How would that be significant to you? And so I'm going to raise this bar even one more time. I'm going to ask you to write it down, like literally write it down as if it was a script, like a movie script. And I want you to hand it to your partner, and I want your partner to read it to you as if they were that person, okay? I have high expectations for you all, so I know you can do it. So you're screenwriters now, dig deep. What is that appreciation you're longing for, the one that may never come? Write it down and give it to the other person to read to you. And I want you to practice receiving it. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I know what it's about.
Oh.
Yeah, please.
So, okay.
And we have only about 4 minutes to do this, so I'm going to ask you guys to be really focused. And as tempting as it might be to giggle and have fun with it, I want you to really use this as an opportunity to practice receiving a deep appreciation. So really, this is your playground. So really, use the tennis court to hit hard. I'm mixing metaphors. And don't worry about the 3-part formula on this one. Just write it exactly the way you want to hear it. No one wants to be the first one to start because everyone. Okay. If you're ready, go ahead and jump in. Yeah, same chairs as before.
Sure. While you were talking to
Oh, we have a different.
Somebody leave and somebody
Yeah,
come
somebody
back.
left.
And it's the back too, or is it just?
Okay, so we have an odd number now.
So you want to,
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah, and then,
Yeah, we have an odd number now. I didn't know I'd be volunteering, so I don't want to say either. So if I can, why don't we start with you and then do the timer?
Thank you for being
the details.
Thank you for listening.
You know, I guess some of
I have terrible handwriting.
Yours is better than mine.
So many copies.
Yes, if you go.
Sometimes there's a bad alarm and mommy alarm, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's kind of
Some laughing. Actually, I listen. You will not have to pretend I didn't listen. Actually, I listen.
No, I think from what you just read.
Thank you for teaching how to express feelings. And it's helped me to teach my students the same formula for expressing feelings. And it has helped me create
Like I'm putting it out.
Well, you've set out ripples farther than you may know. This is past weekend, UC San Diego, reunion summer programs that had students from 3 different years. About 100 people there. So it's is that a meta appreciation? Appreciation about a person expressing
He remembered because he remembered that day is horrible cold. So all he wanted to find me so he can warm up.
My brother sings a cappella.
Do you roll the dice?
Right.
Nobody would ever say anything like that. Maybe they'll mention them, but they don't
Eventually, the center was for people even like
They'll see
footage of almost like then they probably should face this.
That's kind of
Raise your hand if you're not finished.
No, shoot, I think that's added, so.
Data class? Okay. Any ahas, any insights? Any insights? No.
I was really gratified, even though there's no backstory or anything, just hearing those words.
Yeah, I'm glad. Who else found themselves like really kind of maybe touched or surprised by it? I did it with Holly. Even I was kind of surprised at my own example. Like, that came out of me? Oh, I'm keeping it. So, I know it's time to close, so let me just get to the core question to anchor this back to your meetup. Can anyone speak to how what we just experienced and learned throughout this evening, how it connects to an Agile environment? How is this useful? I mean, we all know how it's useful in life, but how is it useful in Agile life? Anyone? Well, Paul and then Phil.
Phil's pointing at me. We use this a lot in our teams to build positivity in relationship. Particularly, like, we very commonly will begin retrospectives with appreciations to build positivity at the outset. So that way, if we need to do the difficult work of talking about what didn't go well, how we want it to be different, we've already got a strong foundation to draw on. We built that positivity there. So that's actually when Phil was talking about. That's where we've used it a lot here in that way. And also because it gives information about impact, right? It really, we often know our own intentions, but we don't necessarily know what the impact of our behavior is, because that lives out there. And when we can actually get information about that back, it lets us know like how that's actually lining up with what's going on.
I love it.
So we use that. We use it a lot.
There's something in your example that I want to bring everyone's attention to, and that's that you built it into your retrospectives. This is something not only for appreciation, but also for performance feedback, things like this. As much as you can automate it, anything that's awkward, any of those vulnerable communication moments that are awkward, like how are we doing, as much as you can automate it, including appreciation, which can be a little awkward if it's not something we're used to doing, creating an opportunity to express appreciation. If you build it into your retrospectives or build it into your process, it actually makes that awkwardness, you come to expect it now. And it takes that edge off of it. So I love that example. Phil, did you have anything to add to that?
I'll just plus one that and say, I was present when Paul introduced that to a team that had not done it before. And the first time it was excruciating for some team members.
Yeah.
And Paul had to almost like really lead them by the nose through, and now this. The next step is this. No, look him in the eye.
I can see you doing that, Paul.
And over time, it snowballed in a good way. The people who had found it really awkward and uncomfortable by the third or fourth time were voluntarily doing it, did not need to be prompted, they seemed genuinely comfortable and appreciative of the process. So it is one of those things where I think a little bit of nudging, a little bit of pushing can really help people do just as you said. This really works.
I'm so glad that you have an actual real-life experience to speak of for that. Martha, did you want to add anything?
I had a question about your process. Do you require everyone in the team to say something that they appreciate, or is it just sort of,
My recollection was it was an invitation.
Yeah,
There was
it's who would like to share, who's got an appreciation they would like to offer.
Okay.
And we just sort of popcorn it around the circle, and then inevitably, you remember my traditional closing. So we need to move on to the next phase of what we're going to do, and I'd like to remind you that appreciations can be offered at any time, not just at the beginning of retrospective.
Right.
And I encourage you to do that.
And although it wasn't required that everyone do it, there still was that sort of awkward moment when there's 7 team members and Martha is the only one of the 7 that hasn't expressed one yet. And everyone's sort of looking at her, and you don't have to, but we're kind of hoping that you will, and maybe you do, and maybe it's really awkward that first time, but then it gets easier.
It lands differently with different teams. It's a great, and there's actually a level up from that. It's crazy that it started to show up in culture now, which is Excelsior. We actually have an app that anybody you were talking about automating things. There's an app, basically, you go to this web page, you select whoever you'd like to offer an appreciation to, and say, I want to appreciate this person for this thing, make it a notification of it.
Excelsior?
Excelsior.
Thank
It's
you.
an internal tool that somebody here built.
We have 2 hands, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap. If you want to stay and talk after that, you're welcome to, but I just want to make sure you're, okay, Danielle, and then I forgot her first.
Brianna.
And then Brianna, thank you.
We do something similar. We kind of built it into our retrospective as well, but we also have like an appreciation. It's not called appreciation, it's something different on Slack, like a channel on Slack. So people can just like pop things in there all the time, like whenever something good happens or whenever someone just wants to kind of call someone out, or something. We do this as well, which has been like really fun. The teams responded really well to it.
What is Slack?
Oh, it's like a communication tool.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, like it's
Skype on steroids.
Brandy?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, I'm also on the product development team that does appreciations of our bi-weekly retrospectives, and reflecting on it now, I'm realizing that all my appreciations are kind of like halfway there. I'll always be like, oh, I appreciate so-and-so for doing this, and then I feel like now I'm realizing that these appreciations will be so much more appreciated by the person that I'm giving them to if I'm really giving a reason for like how that made me feel, like why I am appreciating that they did that, because sometimes we just kind of like throw them out there, like, oh, I appreciate this person for bringing desserts to a meeting, but there's a lot more to be said. I think they're just surface level appreciation a lot of the time.
Cool. Well, I hope that tonight's experience helps you all turbocharge your appreciations and remembering from tonight's experience. I mean, you do have the power to change a life if you see someone for what they most want to be seen for, if you plant a seed that really wants to grow in someone. So thank you for sharing this time together, and hope to see you next year.